There is a massive, fundamental misunderstanding about what an empath's light actually is, and it's time to strip away the fluff and look at it directly. Most people look at an empath and think their light is just about being nice, soft, warm, or a good shoulder to cry on. They treat it like it's just emotional sensitivity or a polite personality trait. But it is none of those things. At its absolute core, your light is pure, unadulterated awareness. It is a psychological superpower. It is the raw, unblinking ability to see reality exactly as it is, without the distortion, without the denial, and without the thick layers of self-deception that most people rely on just to get through the day and stay comfortable. When you carry this level of awareness, you don't just see what people choose to show you, you see the absolute truth of what is actually there. You notice the microscopic shift in a room's energy the second you walk in. You hear the tiny fraction of a second of hesitation in someone's voice. You see the massive, glaring canyon between the words coming out of their mouth and the heavy, emotional undercurrent they are desperately trying to suppress. You pick up on everything that is unresolved, everything that is hidden, and everything they are actively running away from. You possess a built-in lie detector and an emotional X-ray machine, and it operates completely on autopilot, picking up data that others spend their whole lives ignoring. The most intense part about this dynamic is that you do not have to say a single word. You don't have to point out their contradictions, you don't have to launch a confrontation, and you don't have to call them out on their BS. Your mere presence in the room is doing all the work for you. You are a walking, talking mirror. Most human beings spend a massive portion of their lives managing their internal discomfort by aggressively avoiding it. They construct elaborate, fragile identities around who they think they are rather than who they actually are. They write comfortable stories to protect their egos, justify their toxic behaviors, and keep their deepest, darkest insecurities buried safely beneath the surface. It's a standard human defense mechanism, but it requires constant, exhausting maintenance. Then you walk into the environment. You don't play by those unspoken rules of polite denial, not because you're trying to be a troublemaker, but simply because you cannot unsee what you have already seen. Your natural clarity cuts through their pretense like a scalpel. Your presence disrupts their illusions, not aggressively or intentionally, but inevitably. When someone who has invested years into maintaining a fake self-image comes into contact with your level of clarity, a deeply uncomfortable psychological reaction takes place. They feel naked. They feel internally exposed. It is the terrifying sensation that you are looking right past their mask, seeing more than they want to show, and understanding something about them that they haven't even had the courage to admit to themselves yet. For most people, that feeling is completely unsettling and triggers immediate panic. Now, here is exactly where the relationship breaks down and becomes toxic. Most people do not respond to that internal discomfort by becoming curious or self-aware. They don't stop and ask themselves, why do I feel so exposed around this person? Or, what part of myself am I running away from? That takes real maturity. Instead, their ego panics and they immediately externalize the discomfort. They look for an outside target to blame for the bad feeling inside their own chest. And the easiest, most convenient target in the room is you. This is the exact moment where a silent internal recognition warps into external resistance and hostility. It's why you suddenly experience random coldness, dismissive eye rolls, or passive-aggressive comments out of nowhere. It's why people suddenly shift their attitude toward you in a way that feels totally disproportionate to anything you've actually said or done. From your perspective, it is wildly confusing because there was no fight, no argument, and no obvious trigger. But you have to understand that the trigger was never external. The trigger was internal. Your presence alone challenged a lie they weren't ready to give up. The random resentment you face isn't a reflection of your value, and it isn't because you did something wrong. It is their internal dissonance shaking them to the core. They don't resent you because of who you are. They resent you because you are a living reminder of what they are desperately trying to hide from themselves. As an empath, you need to wake up to a brutal truth about your relationships. You don't just attract genuine connection, you systematically attract desperate, unadulterated need. There's a massive functional difference between the two, and confusing them is exactly how you end up exhausted, depleted, and broken. Real connection is a beautiful two-way street built entirely on mutual investment, equal vulnerability, and shared respect. Need, on the other hand, is a hostile one-way street looking for a designated dumping ground. It doesn't care about who you are. It only cares about what you can do to relieve its pain. Because you naturally listen more than you speak, observe more than you interrupt, and validate more than you challenge, emotionally underdeveloped or internally unstable people don't just feel safe around you. They mistake that safety for unrestricted, permanent access to your soul. They look at your calm, your clarity, and your emotional stability and see it as a free resource to be mined. They bring their endless chaos, their unmanaged confusion, and their heavy, unresolved trauma, and they drop it right at your feet. And because of how you are wired, your immediate subconscious instinct is to step in and try to fix it, untangle it, and bring order to their mess. In the beginning, this dynamic feels incredibly meaningful. It feels like purpose. It tricks you into believing that you are building a profound, unbreakable bond and making a massive difference in someone's life. But while you are busy building a relationship in your head, they are running a business transaction. It very quickly stops being a friendship and becomes a cold, calculated extraction. You are pouring out your literal life force energy, your time, and your mental sanity, while they are just sitting back and consuming it like a parasite. Over time, this one-sided dependence warps into something much more dangerous: absolute entitlement. The toxic psychology of a taker dictates that whatever you give out of kindness will eventually be viewed as a mandatory debt you owe them. What they once received with deep gratitude in the early stages suddenly becomes expected. What used to be a favor becomes a daily requirement. They start to build their entire emotional stability around your constant availability, treating you not like a human being with limits, but like an emotional vending machine that is supposed to dispense free therapy 24 hours a day. They offload their internal friction onto you so they don't have to do the heavy lifting of growing up or fixing their own lives. You become their emotional shield, protecting them from the consequences of their own choices, while your own tank slowly runs completely dry. Then the inevitable crash happens. Because you are a human being and not an infinite generator of energy, you eventually run out of gas. You get tired, you face your own life challenges, or you simply run out of the capacity to carry their weight indefinitely. The very second you cannot meet their bloated, unrealistic expectations, the entire emotional tone of the relationship turns aggressively hostile. This is what completely shatters empaths, because from your perspective, you did nothing wrong. You were patient, supportive, and giving for months or even years. But the taker doesn't see your burnout as a human limitation. They see it as a personal betrayal. Because they never valued you, they only valued what you provided. The moment the supply stops, their praise turns into poison. To protect their own ego and avoid looking at their own parasitic behavior, they will immediately reframe the entire history of the relationship and weaponize your best qualities against you. Your healthy emotional boundaries will suddenly be labeled as arrogance or selfishness. Your beautiful, deep perception will be dismissed as overanalyzing or paranoia. Your incredible emotional depth will be twisted and called unstable intensity or too much drama. These labels are completely fake. They are defensive smokescreens designed to make you feel guilty, so you will open the valve and let them extract your energy again. They never loved you, Spongo Kuhle. They loved the convenience of you. They loved how clean they felt after using you to wash away their dirt. You have to stop mistaking someone's desperate need for you as a sign of a deep connection. Being needed is not the same as being respected. And the longer you confuse the two, the more of your life you will willingly give away to people who will watch you drown as long as it keeps their feet dry. The moment you finally wake up and realize that carrying everyone else's emotional weight is an absolute dead end, something shifts inside you. You look at the exhaustion, you look at your empty tank, and you realize this entire dynamic is completely unsustainable. So you do the healthiest thing a person can do. You start setting boundaries. You start saying a clean, firm no without adding a paragraph of apologies. You stop answering texts within 3 seconds, choosing instead to pause, breathe, and respond when you actually have the capacity. You begin to actively protect your time, your space, and your mental sanity. To you, this isn't an act of aggression. It is pure survival. It is basic, foundational self-care. But you need to prepare yourself for the immediate psychological reality that follows. Because to the person who spent months or years benefiting from your total lack of limits, your sudden self-respect feels like an absolute act of war. Here is a fundamental truth about human psychology that you must memorize. People never, ever react to the boundary itself. They react to the sudden loss of control and unrestricted access they used to have over your life. When you had no boundaries, they could use your energy whenever they pleased. Now that you've put up a fence, that free ride is over, and it panics them. Because they lack the maturity to say, "I'm upset because I can't use you anymore," they will flip the narrative to make you look like the bad guy. The very second you tighten your circle, the guilt trips will begin. They will look you in the eyes or send you massive walls of text saying, "You've changed, you've become so cold," or "I don't even know who you are anymore." They want you to feel deeply guilty so that you will immediately lower your guard and let them back in. But you need to look right through that emotional manipulation. The absolute truth is that you haven't become colder. You have simply become more precise. You haven't stopped caring about people. You've just stopped being a doormat. You haven't withdrawn your love. You've just redefined how it's expressed so that it no longer requires your own destruction. The problem is that a taker cannot tell the difference between a healthy limit and a personal rejection. To them, if they can't have 100% access to you, then you are abandoning them. Because of this, they are not going to respect your new boundaries right away. They are going to test them. They will push against your limits, drop passive-aggressive hints, create fake emergencies, and throw temper tantrums just to see if you will crack under pressure and revert back to your old, compliant self. This is your ultimate testing ground, and your only job in this moment is to hold the line. You have to develop the psychological stamina to tolerate their discomfort without stepping in to fix it. When they get angry, let them be angry. When they give you the silent treatment, let the room stay quiet. When they play the victim, let them sit in their narrative. You are not the manager of their emotional stability, and you are under no obligation to compromise your well-being just to keep their world comfortable. Let their reaction happen exactly as it needs to, because that reaction is the ultimate diagnostic tool for your life. It is a flawless, unblinking test that reveals the truth with absolute clarity. It shows you exactly who was genuinely connected to your soul and respected your humanity, and who was merely hooked on your constant availability and free emotional labor. The final stage of your evolution as an empath doesn't happen with a loud explosion or a dramatic confrontation. It happens entirely in the quiet spaces of your own mind. After surviving enough imbalanced relationships, getting burned by enough takers, and finally holding the line with your boundaries, something beautiful happens. Your raw awareness integrates into real, unshakable wisdom. You stop participating in the endless cycles of external drama, and you simply start observing them. The old frantic urge to jump into the fire and fix or save everyone completely evaporates. You realize that you cannot love someone into treating you well, and you cannot think someone into maturity. While this inner shift feels like absolute peace, freedom, and groundedness to you, it creates a massive, glaring psychological contrast for the people around you who have chosen to stay completely stagnant. Your quiet evolution becomes an uncomfortably bright spotlight shining directly on their refusal to change. When you step out of the old chaotic patterns, you unknowingly hold up a mirror to their stagnation. If they are open to growth, seeing your transformation might inspire them to reflect on their own lives and step up. But most people are not ready for that level of radical honesty. Instead of being motivated to level up, their ego goes into full survival mode. To protect their fragile self-image from the painful realization that they are stuck in their own toxic loops, they will completely reframe your beautiful inner evolution as a negative, malicious trait. They will look at your newfound inner peace and call it cold indifference. They will take your quiet refusal to engage in their gossip or manufactured emergencies and label it as arrogant judgment. They have to twist your clarity into a weapon, because if your growth is somehow flawed or wrong, then they don't have to face the uncomfortable truth of their own laziness. This is the exact trap where so many empaths stumble, and you must refuse to fall into it. When you feel the weight of their silent resentment, your old conditioning will scream at you to fix it. You will feel an intense temptation to shrink yourself down, play small, minimize your success, or spend hours over-explaining your personal choices just to lower the tension and make them feel comfortable around you again. You have to understand that this is an exercise in futility. You cannot negotiate your growth with someone who is deeply invested in remaining a victim. Not every relationship in your life is structurally built to evolve with the person you are becoming. Some connections were forged purely based on your shared trauma, your old lack of boundaries, or your willingness to be drained. When you move past that low vibration space, the bridge naturally burns. That isn't a tragedy, that is reality. Your internal growth functions as a flawless, automated filter designed by life itself. Its sole purpose is to systematically separate what is genuinely aligned with your absolute truth from what was merely extracting your life force energy. It cleans out the dead weight so you can actually breathe. The worst thing you can possibly do right now is abandon your own progress just to salvage a connection that requires you to be a lesser version of yourself. Do not apologize for your peace. Do not dilute your presence to make insecure people feel safe. Stop questioning your brilliant, hard-earned evolution just to maintain the comfort of those who refuse to grow. Stand tall in your clarity. Honor the distance that maturity creates, and keep going forward without looking back. At the end of the day, protecting your light is not about becoming cold, detached, or unfeeling. It is about finally choosing to be honest with yourself and precise with your energy. You have spent far too long allowing your empathy to be treated as a free, limitless resource for people who only value you for what they can take from you. The friction, the guilt trips, and the silent resentment you experience when you stand in your truth are not signs that you are failing. They are proof that you are finally breaking free from cycles that were designed to keep you depleted. Your life force energy is sacred, and it belongs to you, not to the unmanaged chaos of those around you. Let the wrong people walk away, let the fragile dynamics break, and let the truth filter your circle until only real, reciprocal respect remains. You have done the heavy lifting to find your peace, and you owe it to yourself to guard it fiercely. Stop shrinking to fit into spaces you have completely outgrown. Embrace the radical freedom of your own evolution, and keep moving forward with absolute, unshakable clarity.